The first time, I told myself it was the wind. The second, a faulty mechanism. But by the third, the quiet, persistent hum from the music box across the room, a tune that shouldn't have played, confirmed one chilling truth: I was no longer alone in my own home. And whatever was making it play was also watching. It all began with an antique acquisition, a music box from an estate sale. It was beautiful, crafted from dark, polished mahogany, intricately carved with swirling vines and subtle, unseen faces. Its polished lid held a single, tarnished brass key. The seller, a frail woman with knowing eyes, had warned me it was temperamental, sometimes playing on its own. I'd chuckled, charmed by the eccentricity, convinced it was just old age. My old Victorian house felt like the perfect home for such an artifact. I placed it on my study desk, a centerpiece among my books and lamps, and soon, its gentle, winding melody became a soothing backdrop to my quiet evenings. It played a simple, melancholic waltz, hinting at forgotten dreams. I lived alone, a creature of habit, cherishing the quiet solitude. Or so I thought. The first, temperamental, incident occurred a week later. I was in the kitchen, making tea, when a faint, reedy sound drifted from the study. The waltz. I paused, cup halfway to the counter. I distinctly remembered winding it down the night before. I walked to the study, and sure enough, the lid was closed, the key unwound, yet a ghostly echo of the tune faded as I entered. I blamed static electricity or residual momentum in the springs. I shrugged it off. Old house, old object. But the hums grew more frequent. Sometimes, I'd be reading, the house silent save for the crackling fire, and then, a faint, almost imperceptible click from the music box, followed by the softest whisper of the waltz, barely audible, as if hesitant to fully reveal itself. I started noticing other small things. Books on my shelves were subtly askew. A framed photograph turned slightly towards the music box. Nothing overtly alarming, just enough to prickle at the edge of my perception. Then came the changes in the melody. The waltz, once a simple, predictable sequence of notes, began to shift. Sometimes, a single note would hang longer than it should, vibrating with an eerie resonance. Other times, the tempo would subtly quicken, or slow, almost as if adapting to my mood. It was never a dramatic alteration, just enough to make me doubt my memory, to replay the original tune, searching for the discrepancy. It was like a familiar face with an unfamiliar expression, unsettling because it was almost right. The feeling of being watched intensified. I'd be working at my desk, back to the music box, and a cold spot would develop between my shoulder blades, prickling my skin. I'd glance over my shoulder, but the room would be empty, the music box silent, its polished surface reflecting only the dim lamplight. Yet, the feeling lingered, a subtle pressure on the air, an unseen gaze that burrowed into my thoughts. I'm muttering explanations, trying to rationalize the unease. One evening, as I leaned over the music box, admiring its intricate carvings under the glow of my desk lamp, I saw it. Not directly, never directly. In the polished, mahogany lid, a fleeting distortion. A shadow, deeper than the lamplight allowed, elongated and misshapen, standing just behind me. My breath hitched. I spun around, heart pounding. Nothing but the empty room. But the image, that impossible reflection, was seared into my mind. It was a silhouette, tall and impossibly thin, with something that felt like a head tilted, observing. I started taking precautions. I'd carefully wind down the music box every night, ensuring the key was motionless. I even tried to ignore it, but it didn't stop. I woke one night to the distinct, quiet tinkle of the waltz. Already playing, as if waiting for me. I snapped on my bedside lamp. The sound stopped instantly. I crept into the study. The lid was open. The key fully wound. And its tune now carried a new, melancholic lilt. A note of sorrow I hadn't heard before, as if mourning a silence it had just broken. The music wasn't the only sound anymore. Sometimes, amidst the quiet lulls between its sporadic performances, I'd hear a faint, almost subliminal whisper. It wasn't words, but a soft, sibilant sound, like dry leaves rustling or a breath held too long. It seemed to emanate from the music box itself, as if the intricate carvings were breathing. My once beloved solitude now felt like a suffocating echo chamber, every silence pregnant with unseen presence. I started leaving lights on, unable to shake the feeling that something thrived in the dim corners of my house, invited by the music. One particularly dark and stormy night, the power flickered. The house plunged into darkness, illuminated only by frantic lightning. And then, from the study, Clear and strong above the storm's roar, the music box began to play. But it wasn't the waltz. This was a new melody entirely. A slow, haunting, unsettling lullaby. Each note felt deliberate, an invitation. As the lightning illuminated the room, I saw the lid of the music box was wide open, the brass key spinning slowly, winding itself. It played, guided by an unseen hand. And as the last note hung in the air, shimmering with an unnatural resonance, I felt an intense cold, a breath like icy fog, ghost across my neck. I stood frozen, unable to move, unable to breathe. The air in the room grew heavy, thick with an unseen presence. Then, from the polished, reflective surface of the open music box lid, the one I had admired for its intricate beauty, it appeared. Not a distorted shadow this time, but a clearer, horrifying image. A face. It was ancient, pallid, with eyes like bottomless wells of sorrow and malice. It was the face of one of the carved figures on the box itself, brought to horrifying life. But this reflection wasn't my reflection, nor was it my room. It was looking out from inside the box, directly at me, its lips forming a silent, knowing smile. And then, slowly, terrifyingly, the polished lid began to close itself, obscuring the face, trapping it within the mahogany prison, but leaving me with the chilling certainty that it had seen me, knew I was there, and had been watching all along. The last notes of the lullaby faded, not into silence, but a low, resonant hum I felt deep in my bones. The music box sits on my desk still, its lid firmly closed. It hasn't played on its own since. But I know it's there. I feel its weight, its presence, every single day. The silence is far more terrifying now than any tune could ever be, for in that silence, I hear the echo of its silent smile, and I feel the cold, unwavering gaze of what lies within. Some curiosities, once awakened, can never be put back to sleep. And some melodies, once heard, once understood, can never truly be unheard. You never know what old objects carry, what stories they hold, or what entities they might invite into your quiet home. Be careful what you bring inside. And if you've ever felt that chilling prickle of an unseen eye, know you're not alone. Share your own dark tales in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to Dark Stories for more unsettling narratives.